let me start and go back to the beginning, spring of 1985, when we were in 12th grade, and that incident that you briefly spoke about.
Yeah.
So I don't know how much you want to talk about it, but I would like to know, how did you get yourself out of that mental space of trauma and still do so much in life?
I have been, for those who are here, so it was in class 12, 20 days before my board exams is when I was raped and there was an attempt on my life. I almost lost my life. I was left to kind of, the guy left the room thinking I was dead. And it was in that state that I was left. And this was followed by a 12-year-long court case, which my father also determinedly fought to ensure that justice was done on both fronts, whether it was attempt to murder or rape. And so by the time the case was over, my first son was born. So that's how long our legal system is. So while everybody in college is kind of discovering themselves, indulging in gentle romances and making deep friendships, I think I was grappling with coming to terms with what had happened to me. And I think eventually what helped was also the way people around me, like my parents, did not, they let me be. So it was not as if they expected anything out of me from as a consequence of this. There was no conversation that we had on this. It was not like we sat and spoke for hours, but they were there and they let me heal. I think that was extremely important. I had friends who stood by me rock solid, and I think that helped immensely as well. There would be so many nights that I would wake up in cold sweat and extremely scared. But I didn't allow, so I actually went up the first day in court when this guy was there. I actually turned around and glared at him and I dressed up to look good, to say that I'm in a good space and you've done nothing to hurt me. And that was important for me to show. So I think, I don't know if I did any of these things consciously, it just happened. So I mean, now I'm trying to figure out how I got out of it and why certain people get into bad spaces after an incident like this. And I don't blame anybody. I'm not saying I'm better or they are, handling it poorly. I'm just trying to put my finger on what made me do things differently so that maybe my message to them can be to focus on some of those things that they could do for themselves. But I think it's also to do with the ecosystem you're in. It's not just you. And that's why when you're, it's treated as any other accident or an injury or a bruise that you have in life. I think you heal much better. If it is given importance is where probably the problem is. And Bala was another person who I think, again, knew when to speak, when to stay silent, when to, say a comforting word. Because I think even after marriage, it took a long while for me to, even the idea of, getting close to somebody was not something that would come easily. But I think over time, I'm completely okay with speaking about it. I don't tear up or don't think about it. Once this conversation's over, I think I'll go about my day quite normally after this. So I think, like I said, the people around me have probably helped me heal, and it was not out of saying, oh, poor thing. It was never that. It was always, oh, wow, what, you must do this. You're capable of doing this. You're capable of more. Is always the kind of support I've got on everything that I did. That little story I told you about going to the US, I think that was also a victory for me on many fronts. It was something that I had to do where I was on my own. When I was in India, I had this ecosystem around me. But when I moved to the US, I was, even those 6 months, I had to fend for myself on many fronts. Although my brother was there, I was not staying with him. Being able to completely be with yourself and know that you're fine is something that I had to do for myself. And I remember Dad not very happy about me wanting to go. And that was one little battle that I had with him. And I think it turned out well at the end. So yeah, I hope I've answered your question.
In so many years, one thing that has not changed in you is your smile. You still have the same. Okay. So my second question is, we all have low days, like we don't want to do things. How did you push yourself to do that walk, the first walk that you did? What was your motivation or the drive? How did you do it?
Yeah, I think we've never had a day since we started running. Both of us have never had a day when we've woken up and said, oh, let's go back to sleep. It's something that we absolutely love. I think what it does for us, it's extremely meditative and healing from many perspectives. Because when I started running, I was in a very bad place physically. When I was 40, they said, you have rheumatoid arthritis. I was told I have to undergo a hysterectomy. I was in a very bad place with my gynae issues as well. And I remember going to Shankar Nethralaya completely bent because my back was in a bad way. My ankle, I had something called ankle bursitis. So every month there was something or the other. I used to have these large, purpura is what it's called. I think these blues, suddenly you would have a blue patch on your skin. And I couldn't make sense of what was happening. And I think that starts happening when you're 40, certain things start showing up that you're growing old. And I think a lot of that kind of came to a close, at least in the last, you never know what's going to happen in the future, but at least in the last 10 years, I haven't, I'm off the meds that I was for rheumatoid arthritis. I'm not taking any other medicines. And when you see that happening to your body and to your mind, I think that's what pushes you. And when you ask me about the 1700, I think what lay beyond is what pushed me. If I did not do that walk, what I was planning for my future, for Ethos's future, for my team's future, is possibly would have not happened. And hence it was important for me to complete that walk. So that's what pushed me.
Great. So now I'll open for others to ask questions. Anyone wants to ask anything or make a comment, let's go ahead.
Hello. Hi, ma'am. Thanks for presenting about your story. I'm a recent college graduate, so I was very inspired by everything. And I think inspired is like a very reductive way of how I was feeling, but yeah. And also thanks for sharing about your past. I really don't have very serious questions, but I think it's still useful to ask. Is on your walks, can you tell us a couple good examples of architectural design that you noticed? Like you mentioned, the highways were designed poorly, and how that affects people. What is a good something good, a good example of architectural design? And the second question is, since you walk so much, maybe you can recommend some shoes for us. Like what what shoes do you wear when you walk so much?
So I'll begin with the second one. That's probably more straight. So I did carry 3 pairs of shoes. 2 of them were, I'm definitely do not want to advertise because they didn't sponsor me. And I really am angry that they didn't sponsor me. But I did go with Skechers for walking, the days I was walking, and I was using Asics for the other days. And I think on day 1, when I finished I did the stupidity of saying I had an old pair of shoes. And I said, let me use that. And it's kind of going to wear off in 2 days. And then I'll throw it and I'll start wearing new shoes. Now, I have trained in the other ones. And I used these old shoes just because I was being miserly. And it played its role, because from the 3rd day onwards, I started having severe pain in my Achilles. And it took 10 to 12 days of kind of nursing it. But I was still doing 28, 30 kilometers with that pain because I had this target. But, that's when I learned about certain kind of stretches, the importance of using a roller before, after, during, foam roller that one uses, the importance of using that, importance of resting it, importance of compression socks, importance of raising your legs, and so on. Skechers are great for walking. They're, the cheaper version of, the cheaper version of shoes, which are good. After that, I had a fall in Gwalior. I stupidly on an off day when I was not walking, I chose to get on a cycle with a cycling club, and I'm not a professional cyclist, and they were racing, and I was trying to keep up, and then I tried getting off, and my leg wouldn't reach the ground because the cycle was high, and I fell, and my foot ballooned up. So for 5 days, I was in bed, nursing it, while all the doctors told me, you can forget this journey, you can take it up a couple of months down the line. But somehow I got walking in 5 days. So after I came back, I also have been developing a little bit of plantar because that was a long journey. And I think repetitive stress also causes this. So I realized that the Kiano brand, particularly of Asics, has been suiting me. But I think it's a very personal thing. For my husband, it's Brooks. And I did buy Brooks, and within a week, I was hurting on my, I was having certain foot injuries. So it all depends on what suits you. And I think while they say use the same shoe, the upgraded version, which we did for many years, I also like mixing shoes because you're not hurting the same, especially during these long journeys, it's not the same impact. I also do alternative running and walking on alternate days. I'm now training for walking, and it's harder than running because you're on your feet for longer. So I do a 300 meter, 700 meter alternate, 300 meter of sprint and 700 meters of walking so that I can engage with people in that 700 meter section. And the 300 meter, I'm kind of zipping. So yeah, so it also helps that you finish a little faster. On your first question on the designs, I'm not saying the infrastructure was poorly designed. I'm just saying that it's not like a one size fits all. And a recent post of mine on Insta went really viral. I had some 5,000 followers over a week because I mentioned something on highways, and people started tagging the highways minister and so on. And incidentally, a few weeks after that, I don't think it's in response to my post at all, but there was a news item where they're talking about footpaths for pedestrians or pathways for pedestrians on highways as well. So it's just simple things that need to be done to ensure, the stretches that you design, the underpasses that you design, where should those underpasses be? It should be where people need to cross over, not where it's convenient or where it's a stretch that you're planning from just the transportation perspective. That's all I had to say on that. On what was good, I'd like to just recall one beautiful day on my journey. I think it was the 35th day. I was at a village called Bharra in Madhya Pradesh, and I was walking. I was at my 26th kilometer, and these two brothers were waving from the other side of the road saying, "You must come home, you must come home." And I said, "No, I am." And they insisted, so I went and sat. And then I ended up spending an hour with them because it was a home built in 1972 by this family. Every tile, every door, even the ropes on their charpoys were handmade by the family. Okay. And we talk about sustainability. Every bit of this is from the earth and will go back to the earth eventually. That's how this house was built. And here we are, architects, talking about cradle to cradle, earth to earth. These are concepts, and we have it right there that we could experience. So sustainability is not something that this man, whose name was Jagjeevan, and his brother Vidyapat, they didn't look at it as something they had to do separate from building their home. It was a way of life, right? And that's all I would tell my designer friends, that make it the way you design. You can't say I'm designing a house and then I will look at how I can make it sustainable. Every line that you draw has an impact on that girl, Sumari, who's a bricklayer's daughter, brickmaker's daughter. And what you specify can have an impact in many ways. And so good design, again, means different things to different people. For me, this was absolutely the epitome of what my walk, if someone asks me, I would say this. But I also went to a very beautiful art retreat called Artichol. Please look it up. Ichol is a village in Madhya Pradesh, again, near Satna. And this lady called Ankita Berry, I think her name is. Sorry, lost her name. But Berry is the surname for sure. She's an art connoisseur from West Bengal, incidentally, has set up this retreat where artists are called to come and spend months of their life creating certain art pieces. So they go and experience the village, they go stay with the villagers at time, and then come and have a retreat here and create these magnificent art pieces. That's where I saw a French artist creating a tribute to the brick, because he thinks the brick are not going to survive anymore. So he says, it's my ode to the brick. So Artichole, designed by an architect. This lady's father was an architect. So Mr. Sabarwal, and there's a life-size statue of him as well as you enter. And then there is this beautiful campus. Yeah.
Thank you.
Pictures of that?
I can share it with you. It's not here right now. I'll have it on another presentation. You want me to fish it out? Artichole is something, art, I-C-H-O-L.
Okay, I'll look it up. No worries.
Yes,
Gita, I have a question for you. Yeah. So I have two connections with you. Okay. One is that I stayed in Saharanpur for about 2.5 months with my dad's brother. So he was a director of Institute of Paper Technology, right opposite to Star Paper Mills. So I was there for about 2 months, 2.5 months. And during one of the conversations, some students in the institute, they said, hey, I heard you talk about Beatles. There's a restaurant in Roorkee. It's called Motel Polaris. Beatles spent a night there on the way to Rishikesh, and they had ice cream there. So I went to the restaurant with those students. We all went in an ambassador car, had ice cream, and we came back. So that is one connection I can tell you. So in Saharanpur, what were you doing when you were there?
My husband's with ITC. So we were at the ITC. He was a branch engineer for ITC in Saharanpur for 1.5 years.
Okay.
ITC is the biggest industry there. So,
right. India Tobacco Company, right? ITC.
Yes, it's Imperial Tobacco Company, but it's just ITC now. They've given up their expansion.
Imperial sounds very.
They don't have a full form. It's just ITC now.
Okay, and the second connection is one of the books I wrote. It ends in a path, so we all travel the same path. So basically, when you talked about the path, all the path you've chosen, I think the path you chose in life is wonderful. What you have done, very inspiring. You touched many hearts, and a very beautiful story. What you told was amazing. And then I would love to read your book when it's out there. And I'll try. Yeah, I'll talk to Anu, then I'll see how I can get a copy of that. Okay.
You spoke about the path, so I think when I had that accident, coming to again, it was a setback, and calming myself. These words floated in my head. The journey is the destination, and there's a whole chapter on that in my book as well, because it was something that I think got me up and walking again. Ambika Berry is the name of the lady. I just looked up. I don't know how it slipped my head.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wonderful story. Thanks, Anu, for
thank you so much.
Okay, I'll let others talk to you. Yeah.
Gitaji, I think it is an awe-inspiring story of your journey. I'm amazed at how many things you have done and how you have coped up with all the early setbacks, but you stood firm. And one thing I can share with you, or at least I have not had these kind of experiences that you had gone through. Well, my workplace is about 40 miles from where I live, and I go early in the morning driving. I'm a morning person. And when I drive through the little bit of the, meadows that I find on my way to New York City, the early morning sun, because I'm facing the east, it's just amazing.
Yeah.
I can definitely, feel the aura of the black, dark sky, and then Arunodayam, it is called. That colors of sun that come up in that morning sun is amazing. It's neither darkness nor redness. It is just in between somewhere, indescribable. So when you showed those pictures, it just reminded me of my daily routine in the morning. Thank you very much for sharing that. India has so much of architecture that is so old and ancient. How does that fit into the modern world of architecture and design? Is it being even recognized? I feel somehow that our old architecture is not very well recognized and showcased in the world of architecture, just like you would have gone to a Western city in Europe. They talk about all their architecture so gloriously, and that they say that, oh, we put this element of the old into the new. And what do you think about the state of our old architecture and its elemental use in designing newer structures?
I have a very strong point of view on this, which I have been putting down as part of Project Board. I think very often when we speak of monuments and historical monuments in our country, or anywhere for that matter, anywhere in the world, we are talking of a very select history. It's the select history of an elite that used that monument. I was reading this book, in fact, by Anirudh Kanisetti, on it's called The Lords of the Deccan, and he's talking about the history of the Deccan region, where he's talking about Vengi, Rashtrakutas, the Chalukyas, and he talks about the Kailasha temple. It's an absolute wonder, but the common people were not allowed in there. So what history are we talking about? Sometimes, you're talking about a history of just those kings and the priests that used it. For me, the history is told from what I call invisible monuments. The hut in Bharra tells me the history of that place, tells me the history of the common people, which is very important. It's through those windows. And I think I agree with you that we've not reached out enough, and we don't spend enough even in conserving that. If I go back the same route, like when I went back on April 15th to the village in Madhapur in Bishnupur, the place is already getting transformed. Many of those homes are already being pulled down and new ones are coming up, And it's happening at a pace that we really cannot do much about. People are getting loans, governmental loans for upgrading their homes. And the rules are that you need to use brick and cement. So even if I wanted to use my ways of construction, I have to give it up if I wanted that. So, and those are guidelines that need to be built in, which is also something we are trying to do some work on to see how we can ensure some continuity on that. Yes, our temples, our forts, our palaces are fantastic. But how much of how they are built is used in day-to-day construction, in 80% of the homes that people build, even in those times. It's like our hotels of today or our malls of today, where common people, I'm talking about maybe 60% of the population would feel very uncomfortable going, would be out of place, may not even be allowed in. And these buildings that we are calling as monuments were probably those 5-star monuments of those times. We've forgotten, we don't have evidence of what was of common people in those times. If I looked at the Brihadishwara temple, where did those people live? How did they interact with each other? How did they learn their craft? Where did they school their children? Which markets did they go to? We don't have any evidence of that. And that to me is extremely concerning, because that tells the history of a place, not this. These monuments tell the history of a people, of a certain section of people, not of everybody. So yes, there's not enough being done, and that's something that I intend to work a little bit on. I don't know what kind of support I'll get.
I hope you get good support for all the good work that you're doing.
Thank you so much. Inshallah.
Does anyone else have any question before we do the closing remarks?
Hi Gita ji, this is Alka speaking.
Hi Alka.
I just want to have This is very inspiring and very amazing life story of your life journey, actually. So I have a question about how did you cope up with the weather? Because in India it's too hot. I think you started in April, summertime. So
No,
did you
I ended in
prepare?
April. Yeah, yeah, it was extremely hard. When I started on Feb 13th here, it was about 22 and 16 degrees centigrade. It was 22 high. So it was cold. It was nice. Not cold, but it was nice. It was pleasant. I did need a light jacket in the morning and I would take it off. As I got into UP and Madhya Pradesh, the temperature started soaring. It got to 37, 38. When I did my planning, I doing the research, I realized I would be reaching Delhi on around the second week of April. And it was meant to be 36, 38 degrees. That year turned out to be the hottest in 122 years, hottest April. So I was walking in 42 and 43 for about at least 2 weeks, and I was in 40s for a lot. So I started waking up much earlier. I would leave my room at 4 o'clock. So that by 8, I had done most of it, and I was only walking through the heat. My team, 7 o'clock, they would put their hands out of the vehicle and they would find it extremely difficult to tolerate. So I would use ice on my head. I would use ice on my, and fortunately it was not humid, it was dry weather. So it helped kind of cool. Ice on a little bandana around my neck. I would try and do things like having chia seeds at night. I don't know how much it helped, but I think it also was a gradual acclimatization over time because it started with cold, and it's not as if one fine day I was walking through the heat or hot weather. So I kind of acclimatized gradually. I'm doing Chennai, Bangalore in January, and I know it's not going to be easy. January 7th to 10th, I flag off. Between 7th and 10th, I flag off from Chennai. And this is focused on designing for persons with disabilities. The project I talked about, Udita. So it's for that I'm walking Chennai, Bangalore in January.
Very nice. Hats off to you and all the best.
Thanks so much. Yeah. In fact, I'm going to be in the midst of my training, I'm going to be in the US. And it's going to be snowed in. I don't know how I'm going to find places to train.
How many people do you have in your team when you do this walk?
When I'm walking, this is my first time that I was doing the 1700. Of course, anybody's first time, I guess. It's not something that you do often. I had checked with Srishti Bakshi, who also I told you I read about, and 3 people from her team actually joined me. She had a entourage. She had almost like a truck following her. There was a mini kitchen in the truck. There was a cook, and there was a doctor and a physiotherapist. I wanted this to be simple, that people don't keep their distance because they see this. I wanted them to come and feel curious. So I had just 4 people. Mahindra's gave me a car and TVS gave me a bike. So I had a guy on a bike. I had a guy on the car. They were responsible for the logistics because we were carrying an LCD projector. We were carrying banners which needed to be put up wherever we went for people to know. They were carrying the flashcards. They were carrying my protein and nutrition, the bags. Every night we were staying at a different place, or every second night. So carrying those bags was all their job. So I had a photographer, a videographer, and 2 people who were managing the logistics. While the Bangladesh one, I had a videographer, and the guy who was driving until the India border, I told him, you're also the photographer. I can't afford another person. So he was doing that. And across the border, he couldn't drive. So we had a driver. So it was just those 4 days in India that there's 2 of them on the team to the Bangladesh trip.
So you're the only one who's walking.
Sorry?
You're the only one who's walking. No one else.
Walking, of course. It was only me. There would be times when one of them would just give me company for a little bit. There were people who joined me along the way, like NTPC. There were 2 runners who joined me for about 10 kilometers. So it would, yeah. It was more a personal journey as well. So I was happy doing it by myself.
Were you listening to something, or you're just walking?
I was. So the first 3 hours, I would try and avoid listening to things. It was only when it got hard would the music start. Until then, I have a little routine that I do when I'm walking. So in my mind, and then, then you start seeing people when the darkness is gone and the light, then you start seeing people, you start engaging with them. I would listen to a few podcasts, a lot of music, and I did not choose what music I wanted to listen to. It would just be a shuffle because I wanted to be surprised as well. And it was very interesting that I started understanding lyrics so much more because I was just focusing on nothing else but the walk. So I would say, oh, the song is saying something to me. It's actually responding to how I'm feeling just now. So it was nice.
Thank you so much, Gita.
Thank you, Gita. It was inspiring conversation and talk from all of us in this audience, little audience that we have. It's our heartfelt appreciation for taking time so early in the morning and walking us through your inspiring journey. And what a wonderful journey, let me tell you. It's truly inspiring. I hope we can soon meet you in New York. It's been a while. So
yes.
thank you very much.
Thank you.